Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Now, Poland is taking a big step towards nuclear innovation. Orlen and Synthos are teaming up to build small modular reactor, compact nuclear power plants that could bring cleaner, more reliable energy by the next decade. A key agreement is expected by the end of summer, and Ukraine may also be part of the plan. Joining us today on TVP World is Wacław Gudowski, a senior advisor of ORLEN Synthos Green Energy. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning, good evening to the other part of the world.
Right, time zones.
Yes.
Now, can you help us understand what exactly a small modular reactor is, and why is Poland investing in this new type of nuclear energy?
You see, some corrections we need to make. For the first, it is not an innovation. This is a very evolutionary development of the nuclear power. You know, for many years, from 50s, the development of nuclear power was determined by the vendors. They are saying, look, we have such fantastic big reactor, you know, find a place, find whatever is it, and we will build it for you. And then, you know, the bookkeepers were trying to get more and more power from one single unit, you know, so-called economy of scale. Look, you know, from one reactor we get not 1,000 megawatts, but 1,400 and so on. And just about, you know, beginning of the 21st century, actually the younger people say, but listen, maybe we should change our approach. We should actually ask the customer, the user, what is the biggest need for them. And they realize that smaller modular reactor are what customers are expecting. What does it mean, small? Small, it means smaller than the very beginning. You know, big reactor is about 1,000 megawatt. Small reactors, we say 300 megawatt and downwards. It's still 300, still quite a lot of power. You can supply, you know, a big city with the heat and electricity with 300. But for the most important thing, that the reactors of that power are very well suited for the Polish electricity grid. So we are closing down the coal-fired. We have to do that, not because ideology, but they are just very old. So we have to build something new in that. And suddenly we had on the table, you know, the smaller reactors. What does it mean, modular? Modular, it means that most of the parts are fabricated, you know, in the company and only transported. So the construction site is not a big building site. It's just we call it a Lego. You know, you put it together, and then in the company, in the factory, you can make much better quality control, reliability control. So small means not bigger than 350 megawatts. Modular, it means most of the components are fabricated in the companies, on place, you know, with a good quality control, and then building a reactor is assembling the things on the site.
Right, it's kind of like an IKEA furniture. Instead of building everything on site,
Yes.
just a lot of things are already kind of put together, and you kind of just assemble it where it needs to be. Now, when will we see the first of these reactors working in Poland?
Well, for the first, Poland, this is not a big step. It is a continuation of the steps which already started actually 5 years ago. I have a very good news for the audience, because, you know, Poland, actually the private stakeholders at first, Synthos company, they made a choice of BWRX 300 reactor 6 years ago. Yesterday we got a great news from Sweden. Sweden, a very, very nuclear country, you know, having for the long time 50% of electricity generated by nuclear, they decided also to choose the BWRX 300. So we were, let's say, 6 years ahead of that. But then after making this joint company with Orlen, we just, you know, at the midway, we just stopped a little bit and looked, oh, is it really a good way to do so? Let's stop a little bit. And then yesterday you get the press conference, oh yes, we are great on this way. What is a drawback of that? That we actually lost a little bit the momentum. We were really the leaders in Europe, and we can be a leader in the supply chain in many, but we stopped a little for a long time. And if you ask why, because, you know, whenever you hear about nuclear power, the technical aspects, everybody say, oh, technical, it's an engineering problem. It's so simple. When you are talking about licensing or funding, everybody says, oh my God, it is so complicated. It is not. Actually, the most important problems are technicalities, and they are easy to solve if there is a goodwill on both sides.
All right, so when it comes to, like I said, a funding issue, is this mostly Polish funded, or are other countries helping to pay for it? Do you see any hurdles when it comes to like pushing this thing forward?
You know, for Polish case, it's extremely simple, because Synthos actually made really kind of the game-changing move in 2019 when signing agreement with GE Hitachi, and now it's called Vernova also, they ask the question, why nuclear power must be the monopoly of the state? You know, we are ready to put some money, we are ready to take responsibility for that. And then, you know, in many countries, you know, almost the SMR history started up because the investment threshold, you know, capex threshold is much lower. The construction time is the risks are generally much lower, but the needs are huge. So if you ask about SMR, this is a venture of two companies, one fully private and another state-owned, but still the stock exchange noted company, which decided we will do that. But you cannot do that without a very, very friendly legal and state atmosphere. And for example, if you look again, in Sweden, they started, you know, being many years after Polish development, but now they started the very simple program. State is guaranteeing 75% of the costs on a very, very preferable loans, and 25% must come from the whatever equity from the partner, and they are opening the market for the foreign private investor. In Poland, we have actually two tracks. The one track is a big atom, which is fully run under the state control and state organization, under the government, and then we have this SMR track, which is fully run on the private company rules. And you know, there is a common saying that the private mills are milling a little bit more effective than the state-owned mills. So I'm very hopeful that we can do that. And we are following what's the good news also. We are very much following the footprints of Canada. Ontario Power Generation got already license for construction, and there will be ready about 2031. So we are 1 year behind them. So answer when? You have already. We are actually aiming at 2032 as the first reactor. And then, actually, I don't see any reason, and history shows that you can build minimum one reactor a year. You know, look what Sweden made. From 1971 to 1985, they built 12 reactors. Let's say one reactor a year. France, from 1973 to 1998, they built 50 reactors in 25 years. 2 reactors. France, a little bit bigger country. So I don't see any technical problem. When we start, we can build actually a series. And the very good approach is that once you started this SMR development, it is a fleet approach. So you are not making a very huge construction, and then after that, bye-bye guys. You have actually the program for 20, 30 years to make this chain of production reliable.
All right, so like things down the line can also be planned as well. Now, you just mentioned the technological aspect being one of those things that pop into people's head when they hear nuclear. I'm also curious about another thing that, well, usually people kind of have the concern about when it comes to nuclear. Do you think that these sort of modular reactor compared to your traditional big concrete building type of nuclear reactor will provide the same kind of safety that the traditional ones that we're seeing right now?
Well, you know, you have very few arguments which actually supporting that those reactors are a little bit more safe, because you know the power density, it means the energy which you take from certain volume is actually much smaller in those reactors. And then that you have 50 years of development. So the key principle for this new reactor is to use as much passive safety. It means that you don't need any reaction from the operator, from the human, from anybody. It's just a law of natures which are making, like if I pour this water, it will fall here. Right. So the same, there are many mechanisms in reactors that once the temperature, so what is the problem? If you lose control over the power development, so you increase the temperature. So once the temperature increase, they are law of natures which are doing that it will stabilize and never allow to. This is a so-called temperature reactivity feedback. So there is a lot of so reactor can go and be safe without electricity supply in the critical condition for days and days and days. So the humans have time to react to whatever happens to that. So the key answer for that, using the passive safety mechanism and so-called safety in depth, it means you have many barriers until something bad happens. So if one barrier is actually penetrated, let's say another barrier is here. So it's a very safe and thought-through technology, nuclear, based on the mistakes we did during last 60 years. But, for example, BWRX-300, which is a reactor of ORLEN Synthos Green Energy, is actually evolution of 10 different generations of the reactor. So each generation, like iPhone, the first iPhone was terrible. This is quite okay. But also Samsung and others, by the way. but and you don't hesitate that the next version will work better, not worse.
Right, and we've already seen kind of iterations of this, so we're already looking at something that's very advanced. And last but not least, just looking down the future in everyday terms, how is this going to change life for Polish families, like let's say in 10 years' time? Are we looking at a lower bills, cleaner air, fewer blackouts?
I hope that there will be no fewer blackouts, but no blackouts. That's for the first. Cleaner air, that's, Poland is the most air polluted country in the world. We are actually nothing to be proud about, but we are the second country in Europe after Turkey having the most lethal cases related to the air pollution, particularly so-called particulate matter. So yes, clean air. The bill, of course, because that is why you are doing that. But you have to have a strategy. You cannot offer if you look around, this mania of renewable energy sources, it actually realized through the higher electricity bills. If you look in Germany, this is one of the highest energy prices. You are reading every day, the companies are bankrupting because of the high energy costs. So the low energy cost is a principle of the strategy of development of nuclear, even if the capex is high.
Right. Thank you so much for your input and insight. I really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.